Hello and welcome. Hope you're having an absolutely gorgeous day wherever you are. This is the BushWhisperer. I have a real treat for you. We have a long-standing member of the Roundtable team that has come to do a little bit of an expose for us. His name is Ian Robinson. He's Reiki Zen. You've probably seen his wonderful relaxation healing videos on the web and classes that he gives and insights and readings that he gives an expose of on his channel. And the channel will be linked below. Without any further ado, I'd love to give Ian an opportunity to introduce himself. He's a wonderful brother and he's been a wonderful part of the team at the round table and a close friend, great guy, and a blues musician. We're going to hear all about him presenting Ian. Welcome, Ian, brother.
Hello, Franklin. Thank you for having me. It's been a arduous journey, but we've got here in the end. And it's lovely to be here. Lovely to see you again. We seem to be having a lot of wonderful conversations lately. You've been on my channel, and now you wanted to interview me for your channel. And we've had you on mine and Patrick's channel to discuss all things weird and wonderful on there as well, to do with shamanism, to do with the occult, to do with hidden knowledge and wisdom, healing practices, what you do in your 9 till 5 shamanic practices each and every day. I think you felt it fitting to just get me onto your discussion board to talk about, I suppose, my journey, my life, the healing that I do, the Reiki, the energy healing, the meditation, the hypnosis, all these wonderful practices that I use within my every day, really, as much as I can. So it's great to be here, and it's great to try and, if nobody really knows about these things, to open people's minds to them. But I'm sure a lot of your viewers are very aware and very open anyway. But even if we touch one or two people with this sort of information, it's always a bonus because it makes people more aware of what is really out there. There is so much more going on than the physical.
Absolutely, brother. Totally. And it's an honor to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us heartily. I'd love to start off with perhaps, I mean, like you said, most of the people are going to know, but for those that don't know, maybe you could give us a little bit of an introduction to what Reiki is, how it works, and how you came into Reiki to begin with.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So Reiki is a it's been around for thousands of years actually, but it was refounded by a Buddhist Zen uh, monk in Japan named Mikao Usui, and he rediscovered this energy and wanted to learn about the ways that Jesus and the Buddha were able to heal themselves and heal others. So he went on this journey, like a mission, really, to find out about this mystical healing power that they had within them. And his journey took him through many ventures, but he went on a retreat onto Mount Kuriyama in Japan and did a 21-day fasting retreat. And at the end of his 21 days, he was said to have received some enlightenment as to what this healing was. He was shown signs, symbols, and synchronicities, to which, when he did, all these synchronicities and symbols came back to the research that he'd done, and everything, all the dots seemed to go together. So then he went on to his journey to start learning more about it, practicing it, and then more and more people became aware of him, went to him for healing, and uh, he also trained another gentleman called Dr. Hayashi, who was actually a naval surgeon, naval doctor, and he learned Reiki and then he also trained a lady called Mrs. Takata, who was based in Hawaii, and she really is the woman that brought Reiki to the West. Um, so it's thanks to her that we now have this healing modality. Because really, when Reiki was really being discovered at the height, it was kind of like in the late 1940s, 1950s, around about the time that there was the Pearl Harbor bombing. So obviously, American and Japanese relations weren't that good at the time. So it took quite a while before people became more accepting of it, I suppose. And in 1980, um, there was only 22 Reiki masters in the world. So since then, Reiki has kind of really, really flourished, and it's for a lot of people, it is kind of like the basis, and it's the grounding force of their journeys, their healing journeys, and many people tend to learn Reiki and then build on top of that, and add other practices into their everyday lives, as I am doing now with the business. Um, but Reiki, what it is it's a very gentle, non-invasive, hands-on or distance healing technique, um, where we kind of connect to the person's energy, and we feel what's going on within them. We feel what's going on within their energy field. But ultimately, what happens to the recipient, to the client, is they feel a great sense of relaxation, a great sense of relief. It helps a lot of things that really the mind can create a lot of issues in the physical body. So it allows the mind to relax, it allows then the body to relax. And when we're in these deep places of relaxation, the body can really start to repair itself and heal through a natural process. So that's basically what Reiki is in a nutshell. It helps you relax, and it speeds up your body's natural healing processes.
Wow, that's a lovely, concise and informative background to Reiki. Interesting, its timing, fascinating. Didn't realize that that was, so timed
Mm,
during so many world global changes happening in the world. While there was the Second World War happening and people were going crazy and, mayhem and slaughter, here was a monk getting enlightened, learning how
mm,
to heal people. There's something quite beautiful about that. It's quite inspiring to me. What I'd love to hear about as well is how,
yeah.
how did you find your way to Reiki? How did Reiki find you? Probably a better way of putting it.
Um, quite kind of an interesting process, really. Reiki found me kind of by accident, as most things tend to do for most people when they need to find this path, or a path that they need to follow. But it was during a time of me kind of getting to know who I was and self-discovery, and uh, going through a lot of mental health issues, and physical issues as well from the mental health, and started to meditate. A friend of my brother actually, just randomly got in touch with me, and we became quite good friends, and we still are good friends to this day. And he'd learned about what was going on with me, with my mental health, and the various forms of medication I was on at the time. And he'd said, "Have you ever thought about meditating?" And it was I was probably one of those people that would you probably least expect someone to sit down and meditate. But I started a meditation practice, and started off just for a few minutes each day, and built it up and built it up. And the meditation really helped to give me great clarity. Me realize that I needed to leave the place I was working, and went to a different place, which is where one night, just cleaning up the coffee shop where I was working, there was some leaflets on the fireplace in the coffee shop, and it was about Reiki. And something in the back of my head went ping, and I was like, "Ooh, what is that? I need to know something more, a little bit more about that." And I knew the word ki. I knew what ki meant. I knew it was about energy. Years previous to that, I did Aikido. So obviously ki do. I know what the ki is. It's to do with energy. I didn't know what the ray was. And then I found out that the guy that was on the front of these leaflets actually came into the coffee shop near enough every single day. So I struck up a conversation with him and got to know him a little bit better, and explained what I was going through. And he said, "Well, why don't you just come along and just try a session of Reiki? First session's free. Then after that, you just pay." So I went along, had a session. Obviously, by this time as well, I was well on my meditation practice. So I was meditating for up to and over an hour a day. I'd really got into the realms of meditation, and some real wonderful, some may call crazy, but wonderful things started to happen during the meditation, because it just opens you up so much. You become so much more consciously aware. Um, so I went along, had the free session of Reiki, and I just left there like floating. I just felt so light. I was like, wow, what is this? I need to know more about this, and I need to have more of these sessions. And then I found out that my now Reiki master, he actually taught it and was able to attune people through the teachings, to then hand it down. And that's basically what's been happening since since the dawn of Reiki. It's people have been connected to it and attuned to it, and are able to then go on their own healing journey, their own healing path of self discovery, self healing, and to be able to then, if they wish to, become a Reiki master or a Reiki teacher, to be able to teach it and attune other people to it as well. So that's kind of like how I found it. Magical, magically mystical, really. Wonderful.
Well, that's a beautiful story, and it's interesting as well. Because these things tend to work with synchronicities and become they have a life of their own, shall we say? These paths find us. Something's meant to be. It happens. What I'm
Mm,
curious about is you mentioned how meditation was what sort of opened your door towards considering Reiki, and we will get back to Reiki for sure. I want to hear more about your Reiki practices and your what you're doing with it. Though I thought a moment since it came up to look at the meditation side of things. So what kind of meditation practice were you doing, and what were your disciplines specifically that you were doing? I mean, obviously, to jump in at an hour to get to an hour a day it takes a considerable amount of discipline to start doing that, because especially in the beginning, it's a little bit difficult to do. You get sore ankles, sore knees. You know the story.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the early days of meditation, it was just kind of like just giving it a go and seeing what happens. And yeah, just for a few minutes of, normally when the mind is going, just having that few minutes of just like, oh, like there's nothing there at the minute. It's just so silent, because I was so focused on, and I was just focusing on breath. And that's the one thing I always come back to, is always the breath. I've tried many different things, many different ways of meditating, using mindfulness techniques, using mantra, um, using Om, but it always, for me, it always comes back to the breath, and just the awareness of the breath, the awareness of the body, what I'm feeling in the body, any emotions that might arise within the body, where they're coming from, uh, speaking to the body, speaking to the emotion. What is it? Why is it there? When you become really deeply in tuned with the energy of your body and your own energy. It actually, it speaks to you, and you're aware of it. You're aware of the feeling of it, and you will get messages internally. Maybe not always in the head, but you will get a feeling, because the body will speak to you and it will tell you what you're not putting in your body, what you should be putting in your body, what you need to stop doing. It's a wonderful healing vessel, the body. It will just give you this information when you become in tune with it. And that's basically what was happening with me. It was giving me this information of what I needed to do. I became so kind of like open quite quick that a lot of kind of what people might class as like supernatural activity started happening around the house quite quickly, which to begin with kind of like did but fundamentally now I just think, wow, that was a wonderful actual part of it, just to tune me in a little bit deeper to what is going on around us. But yeah, the meditation, like I say, I keep going off topic, but like I say, always for me, always comes down to the breath, and just tuning into the breath, tuning into the body, because that is the basis of all of it. Everything to do with meditation always comes from the breath. Then you can branch it off into different areas if you want to, but you tend to always start with the breath. Um, and that's kind of like how I try to use it within my Reiki practice as well. I try to tune into not just my breath, but also the client's breath. So if it's an in-person session, what I tend to find, and what I found over the years, um, is now when I'm doing the in-person session, I wasn't really aware of it before, but now when I make initial contact and place my hands on the person's head or the person's body, wherever it might be, I'm aware of their heartbeat, and I'm also aware of my heartbeat, and then the two heartbeats come into sync and they connect, and I'm like, oh, and that for me has just kind of like really, it synced the Reiki even deeper. It synced the sessions even deeper. It really takes the client and myself into a wonderful, wonderful healing place, because even though I'm the practitioner, I'm also receiving the healing, because the healing is coming through me as like a channel, and moving through the hands and into the client, into the recipient. When it's distance, which is a slightly different um, topic altogether, really, which a lot of people can't kind of grasp. But when we talk about energy, there is no distance. Everything is now, and everything is ever present. So, regardless of me being here in the UK and the client being in Australia or America or Africa, wherever, the connection is there already. The person's intention to have the Reiki has created the initial connection. My agreement, the agreement of a date, the agreement of a time, is an energetic connection. And then a lot of people say that when the person actually pays for their session or pays for their healing, that the healing has already begun. It might be a week away before the actual session where they come to lay down to enjoy the healing. But because that connection has been made, that bridge has been crossed and connected, the healing has already begun. And for me, distance Reiki, as much I love both modalities, but for me, distance Reiki is, it's a whole other ball game for me, because I can just tune in. I don't know. I just tune in that little bit deeper. I'm a little bit more consciously aware of their energy, because I think sometimes in person, I think subconsciously people maybe put a little bit of a guard up, that they don't want you to go right in. When you have that distance, um, because there isn't that physical thing there, it's a lot easier energy, to be aware of maybe what they're going through, what they're feeling, anything that I might feel internally is usually something that they're going through. So it's kind of like an internal. I kind of use my body as like a thermometer really for them. So if I feel anything going on within me, I will feed that back to them and let them know of maybe what's been happening on a healing level, maybe something that they're going through. I might experience pain in a leg. Have you got issues with this leg? Yes, I have. And they usually corroborate what I'm feeling or what they're going through at that time. And I just think that's absolutely fascinating for them to be thousands of miles away and to be able to tune into that. It just, yeah, it's just mind blowing how powerful this stuff is.
Yeah, the whole idea of time and space, the elusive nature of time and space, and how we think of time as a linear construct and we think of space as a limiting construct. But time is neither limiting or
Mm,
linear, nor is space effectively. There is this quantum entangling process. So the whole idea
mm,
of distance is very much a relative. It is fascinating to actually see the
yeah,
evidence of this coming through. And what you were saying about the breathing was beautiful as well. I find as well, like you go through everything, you always come back to the breathing, even if you've been, practicing, as you have for a long time. It will get back to the breathing. Whatever journey you take, it'll come back because the breathing is life. The moment you stop breathing, your heart stops beating. It's
mm,
only so long you can't breathe for. You can fast, you can not drink water, you can. There's a lot of things you can do, but you stop breathing and you stop living. It's quite fundamental to the principle of the heart. And I love the idea of the heartbeat attunement. That's
yeah.
obviously powerful resonant frequencies. What I'd love to ask you about is you've spoken about your sessions with the clients on a one-to-one. What about the teaching? Are you teaching at the moment, and where are you teaching? And how does that work for you? I mean, what kind of students are you attracting? And it must be quite interesting to see who's attracted to Reiki. Are these corporate types, or I imagine a lot of people come, even not if they want to become healers per se, but they maybe want to learn self healing, or am I shooting into the dark?
No, no, you're absolutely right. Quite an eclectic mix, really, of people that have been drawn to me for Reiki and to learn Reiki. Some people that have their own healing practices, massage, holistic therapies that they want to add to their arsenal, I suppose, of other practices. Um, and one of my other students from last year, she worked with the NHS, so she was a doctor with the NHS, but she wanted to learn energy healing. She wanted to learn more because she felt there was more in that than in um, mainstream medicine, which I thought was fascinating. I didn't know how far I could go with that, with it being connected with the NHS. But yeah, totally open to that and ready to accept it. And from she did her level one, so there's three. There tends to be three levels of Reiki that you get trained in. So there's Reiki level one, which is basically being kind of like connected to the energy and attuned to the energy. And that is mainly just for you, for your self healing, to give yourself that healing every day. And to also be able to give it to friends and family as well, so they can benefit from the healing. Then there's Reiki level two, which is known as the practitioner level. And this is where you can start maybe running a small business and starting to earn a little bit of money on the side, if you like, by running your little Reiki practice, which is kind of like how I started. And then you can go to Reiki level three. Sometimes some teachers split it in Reiki Master level into two. So they will teach Reiki Master on its own, and then they'll teach Reiki Teacher separately. It's totally dependent on the Reiki Master themselves, the teacher, and how they want to teach it. I do the Master Teacher together um, over the 2 days of training, and then we meet up further down the line to see how they're getting on. But that tends to be how the teaching goes. I do actually have a Reiki 2 course in February, coming up. So these are students that have come from last year and moving into this year now and wanting to further their Reiki journey and their Reiki training, just to uh, delve a little bit deeper, I suppose, to be able to. I mean, I know people that have done the Reiki Master course or the Reiki Teacher course, and they have no intention of wanting to teach it, or they just felt it was a journey that they had to go on, um, and to get to that point, which I think is beautiful in itself, because it's just nice just to have that there, for everyday purposes, for yourself, for friends and family. And if you want to set something up in the future, then it's there ready for you to do it. But once you've been connected to the Reiki, it's there for life. It doesn't go away. You might need to, if you forget about using it, or you don't use it for maybe 10, 20 years or whatever, then what we often describe, or what we talk about, is a 21-day clearing cycle, where you will give yourself Reiki consistently for 21 days. And you do that healing, you just get yourself, it's basically like cleansing your energy, giving yourself an energetic detox to be able to be ready to give that healing again, to people. Because if you need to be in the right place, and you need to be in the right place mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, before you can give that healing on to somebody else. If you're not aligned, if you're all over the place, if your energy is chaotic, then your clients will feel that. People can feel that. People are very empathic, whether they're aware of it or not. People are very, very empathic. They can tune in on that. They can feel it. So a healing process really is all about. It really is about finding that stability, finding that grounding, finding that balance in life, and yeah, just going through the process and seeing where it takes us. It's a wonderful journey when you start on it. It really is. It really opened my eyes to so much more after my Reiki one. It really did. It was amazing. Some of the stuff that kind of formulated after that for me.
That's really lovely to hear, and it's interesting. Like you say, a lot of people are going through the whole process, and they're not really looking for, you know, being a teacher or whatever. I'm curious. Obviously, you probably do classes and workshops, probably close to where you live or London or wherever. But do you teach it just in person, or do you teach it online as well?
It's just in person teaching that I do. A couple of the affiliations that I'm connected to, one of which is the UK Reiki Federation, and they they specifically don't like online attunements. They're a bit against it. Uh, Um, Personally, I'm not really a fan of them myself either. The theory you can learn online. The theory's fine. The actual attunements themselves, for me, what I feel, and what a lot of Reiki teachers I think feel as well, it has to be kind of like a one-on-one connection. There's something about that connection between two people together in close proximity. I know we talk about energy is everywhere and there's no time and distance, and a lot of people do criticize that and say, well, you can't believe in distance healing if you don't believe in distance attunements. And for me, they're a little bit different. And I have had a few people that have come to me in the past that have had done the online teaching and the online attunements and the online training, and they've they've actually got in touch either with myself or other Reiki practitioners, and they just feel like lost. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn. They haven't got someone to kind of go to for guidance. They feel a little bit lost. The energy might feel a little bit all over the place. Some courses you see online now that teach all three levels in like 3 or 4 days, which is kind of like it's a big energy surge for people to take in. It's a lot going on, because that attunement itself is helping to kind of declutter your energy. So if you're going through like these three huge upgrades in a short succession, it's a lot for kind of you to deal with, and that's why as well why we try to leave a little bit of space between training, between attunements, just to give you time to work on yourself, because a lot of stuff will arise, a lot of stuff will come up, a lot of emotions will come up, traumas might come up. um, and if you're in the midst of all this stuff and you've got no one to go to and no one to speak to, because a lot of the online, there are some really good online teachers, I'm sure. I'm not knocking them all, but there are a lot of companies out there that they'll just teach it, they'll give you the stuff to download, and then that'll be it. There'll be no one you're actually in contact with for guidance. And I see this more and more on. I do follow a page on social media called Reiki Healers UK, and there's a lot of people on there that get trained online, and they're just totally lost. They haven't got a clue. They don't have anyone to go to speak to get any guidance. So they're asking a lot of questions on this forum, this group, that is, some of the questions, that's not right. It just seems really bizarre and weird. So yeah, so that's one of the main reasons why I prefer in-person teaching, and it's just a nice connection to have that one-on-one time with individuals, because you can see as well when you're teaching, you can see taking it all in, and it's sinking into their energy. You can see that it resonates with them and it's flowing. It's not quite sitting right with them, or they're not taking something in, or they just don't understand it. So when you can see that, you can actually say, are you having difficulty understanding this? Do you want me to go over something a little bit more? Whereas if it was online, you don't have that. You don't have that connection. So it's nice to have that one-on-one, interpersonal, empathic, energetic connection with people. Just my opinion.
That's rather interesting and rather telling, I think, as well. Yeah, I do agree that I've seen in the past people being bombed with too much at once, not just with Reiki, but with all sorts of
Mm,
disciplines. Because it's basically the attitude is take the money and run. Like, do you know what I mean? That's what it is. A lot
mm,
of companies,
yeah,
they want to take
yeah,
the money and they want to run. Okay, we got
absolutely.
your money now. Get out. It's like a restaurant. Like we can play fast music. Eat your meal. Like get out. We need the table, kind of thing.
Yeah,
It is a little bit like that. And
yeah,
you know, um, I, I've
mm,
I've considered this myself. Like it's one of the reasons I've had a hard time. I don't want to teach workshops, day workshops, really, or even weekend workshops. I've been trying to figure out how I want to teach even the occult therapeutics. Like I've come back to the same thing. Like it has to be like martial arts or something. There's got to be a structure to it. Twice a week or once a week, whatever it is. You have your weekly classes, you do your homework. I suppose that gives people
mm,
a chance to build a relationship with you where they can catch up with you. They can come back to you. They can come back for regular sessions. They can come back for talks, questions. Um,
mm,
and that is, I
yeah,
think, the key probably because it's such a personal journey. No two people are going to have the same journey, are they? Um, and that brings me to another
mm,
interesting question: the Reiki
yeah,
symbols.
absolutely.
I'd love for you to tell me a bit about the Reiki symbols. There's obviously a very interesting background there, and specifics of those.
Yeah, Reiki symbols are, they're very interesting, and I know we had this discussion on one of our last videos about vibration, and each symbol has its own unique vibration. Um, And I know you put iron filings onto a speaker and you play a certain frequency, then the iron filings form geometric patterns. And a lot of these geometric patterns are healing patterns, because they're forming that signature, that frequency, that hurts, whatever it might be. And each of the symbols has a set mantra that you use with it. It's got its own frequency. It's got its own vibration. In the Asui Reiki method that I use, that there's three Reiki symbols, and then there's the master symbol when you become attuned to Reiki master. And you get attuned to those three symbols when you do your level 2. So when you do your level 2, you've got this, you've got the healing, you've got the symbols, and you can kind of put them together, and it doesn't make it any stronger or any different whether you're Reiki 1 or Reiki 3, but it refines it and defines it, and gives it more focus and clarity, especially when you use the mantra. The mantra is really powerful. And I know some Reiki masters, and I have too myself in the past, where I've just visualized one of the symbols and used the mantra and just repeated it over and over again. And the mantra, the power of the mantra, what you feel in the body, what you feel in the words, in the vowels, in the way it's spoken, in the way it's said. It really profound, really powerful. And it's the same with, we have 5 Reiki principles as well that we try to use each and every day within our practice. And those Reiki principles, about letting go of anger, letting go of worry, being grateful for each and every day, um, living your life honestly, and being kind to all life, being kind to everything. And the reason why those 5 principles are written out in that way is, when you let go and let go of the anger and the worry, basically you're taking away all this negative energetic debris that might be clinging onto your field, that might be clinging onto your body, clinging onto your organs, whatever. When you work through that and you let go of that, some light starts to shine through internally, and you start to feel the gratitude of who you are, where you are, the learnings, the teachings, the places that you've been, all the bad things that have happened, all the good things that have happened, are actually, they actually form one, because there is no good or bad. It's all, it's not duality, it's non-duality. So you step into this wonderful healing light that we find within us, and the more you focus on that light, and the more you find this light internally, you want clarity, and with respect to yourself and others, and you will be kind to everything and everyone. And it's just a natural progression, a natural pattern, a natural way of being, by living in this harmonious, peaceful state. Um, and it's, for many, I suppose, it will be difficult to find that harmonious, peaceful place. But that's why we have practice. That's why they call it practice, a meditation practice, a healing practice. It's because we're practicing it. We're practicing it to become better at it. And the better we become at it, the better we become internally within ourselves. And the better we become internally with ourselves, we start to heal every cell, every fiber, every muscle, every organ. It all starts to heal energetically. Energy is everything. Then it starts to heal the physical. And when you start to become lighter and more energetically in line with who you are, or your authentic self, people can feel that. People will tune into that. And that energy, you may attract people that may need help. You may attract people that just want to tell you their life story in the middle of the street, because you've got that wonderful light glowing within you. And it might not be something that you're physically aware of, but it'll be there, and you can feel it. You can feel it in yourself. You can feel the lightness in your body. You're not weighed down by all the troubles of every single day, because it really doesn't matter. You have to just let all that go, and just be present with yourself. And the more in line with that presence that you are internally, We always come back to that breath, coming back to the breathing. I often say to some of my clients, especially meditation clients, um, if you're not aware of your breath, then you're not being present. And that might be hard for people to kind of like take in, because breathing is a natural thing to do. We all breathe. But when are you actually aware of your breath? That is the key. Most people take the breath for granted and it just comes and goes, and blah, 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 blah. You go through life, you have your stress, you have your ups, you have your downs. You're not consciously aware of your breathing whatsoever. You're not aware of your heartbeat. You're not aware of anything that's going on internally. And you just go through life in that state. And imagine going through that state for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of being in that 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 programming that you've created yourself, that trouble, that war that you've carried all those years. And what's it done for you? What's it created? Usually disharmony, usually some form of disease. And that's where the word disease comes from, because you're not harmonious with your nature, your being, your physical being.
So true. Or the nature within, to be in a state of disharmony with the world around us is to be
Mm,
in a state of disharmony within us. And I like the way you put that, the disconnect that a lot of people have with their breath. I mean, we all notice our breath. Somebody passes away, you feel that, it's, you you get forced to become aware of your
mm,
breath during environmental stresses. Somebody puts you into a compromised position, you become angry or frustrated or nervous. That's when you notice your breathing. Or if you are sad or down for some reason, or it could
mm,
be a lot of things. Or we generally notice our breath when we run. But
yeah.
that is that is a fundamental a thing, I think, when it comes to the breathing process. Is we take for granted our breathing, we take for granted our emotions, our feelings. There seems to be a very powerful connection between our breathing and our feelings,
Mm,
because obviously, as we breathe, we become in tune with the people around us and the feelings that connect us to them and them to us and to each other, and this web of emotion. And I noticed that, like, okay, let's say you're looking at various different cosmological ways. It could be called anapasana from certain schools of Theravada, or it's called, you know, dhyana in Western schools is essentially, or sorry, in Indian schools that essentially focus on the breath. Even in Western schools of occult mystical traditions, they practice the pendulum breath, where you'll go inside yourself and breathe in and breathe out of yourself into the world, become an externalizing and internalizing process of the polarizing between the heart's energies of taking and giving. But whichever way one works, that's quite interesting. What was the tradition of breathwork that first appealed to you? Was it a Buddhist or a Vedic or was it just sort of breathing in itself?
I think it was really just breathing in itself. There was no kind of actual system that I tuned into, and it was only later down the line that I started to look into other factors and other modes and other ways. But I just found it really fascinating and interesting how all of them started with the breath. All of them started with the breathing, focusing on the breathing, and just to bring that central point, and then you move into the other aspect. You can move into the mantra, you can move into the visualization, or the mindfulness activities of using various points of awareness around the body as well. But yeah, for me, it was just the breath. And it was just stillness. It was just that wonderful feeling of stillness, and just you could almost, well, you could just feel, as I'd become more and more attuned with it, you could just feel everything going like opening out. You could just feel your energy field just opening up, and you start to become very, you get that extra sensory thing going on where you're very aware of other energies that are around you. You might not be able to see anything, but you can feel it. And it's like, oh, right, okay. And you become, again, you become like this thermometer for energy that is around you. You become so openly aware of other people and other things, and beings and feelings and whatever else might be around. And I talked earlier on and said about some of the supernatural things that kind of started to happen, and I started to like hear um my mine and my brother's name kept getting called at like 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, like witching hour, that thing that people often talk about when you're going through these stages of awakening, and um, kept hearing that, and the TVs kept turning themselves on and off to try and get my attention. And I was trying to always rationalize it by thinking, oh, I must have rolled over onto a remote control or something like that. And then find out that the remote control is nowhere near me. And I'm just like, well, how the hell has that done that on its own? Um, so yeah, so it was a little bit freaky to begin with. And then I kind of like started to understand a little bit more about it. And then after my Reiki 1 course, my Reiki 1 attunements, as I was going through the attunements, um, I was very aware of animal guides, spirit guides, like faces and animal beings that were being shown to me. And he appeared just as like a pair of eyes that I was just looking at. And it was actually human eyes to begin with, and then the human eyes moved away a little bit, and the human eyes started, and it moved back a little bit further, and I saw the shape of the wolf. The wolf was running through forests and through trees and such wonderful wilderness. Um, and that was kind of like, wow, this was like really mind blowing, and really opened something up. And then the next one was the eagle. The eagle made itself very present to me. And the eagle is something that a lot of people see an eagle in my distance sessions, because of that flight, the connection, and the eagle presented again exactly the same. It was the eyes, human eyes, and then went onto the side of the head, formed the shape of the head, the white-headed eagle, like a bald eagle. And then I was actually with the eagle, flying above the mountains, flying above the trees, swooping and diving, and just felt so amazing in that energy. Um, and then during what I'd mentioned before, my 21-day clearing cycle, during doing that, after my level 1, I became aware of this word that kept being repeated in my head, and I had no idea what it meant. I was like, I don't know what this means. And it was Hayoka, Hayoka, Hayoka. I'm like, what is this? I don't know what this means. So I just asked out loud, and I said, look, if this is another one of my guides that wants to make themselves known to me, then can you make me aware in my reality, in my world? Um, and then the next day I put on my YouTube feed on my phone, and the first video was about Hayoka. I'm like, oh, that's that word. So I watched the video and found out about the Hyoka Native Americans. Found out about these empathic um, storytellers, poets, musicians, magicians, all these wonderful things that they worked with. And then I started getting another word, which I found out was the name. And I said, if this is your name, can I feel your energy? Can I feel you near me? And I had this overriding feeling of just this energy flying through me, back into me, and then straight up my body and out the top of my head. And I was just like, whoa, what the hell was that? It was absolutely amazing. It was just wonderful. It was just a wonderful feeling of love, of bliss, of such high vibrational energy. It was unreal. It was amazing. And I've never felt anything like it since. That was just like mind-blowingly beautiful. It really was.
That makes a lot of sense from a shamanic perspective as well. The guides would be presenting themselves to you in whatever
Mm,
form we're ready to appreciate, and the particular nodes that we interface with through
mm,
reality, through the subconscious enactment of ourselves in the process of this experience of being.
mm.
And the Hayorka is an interesting series of syllables. What other mantras are associated with Reiki specifically, and are they Japanese, or what language are they specifically? Curious.
So the mantras that we use for the symbols are Japanese. Um, and so that, like I said, there's three of the main symbols for Reiki level 2. And the first symbol that you always get attuned to is known as the power symbol. Um, and that basically gives power to the other symbols. But it's also, all the symbols are multidimensional as well. So when we come to draw them or visualize them, that it's not just like that 2D image. They are multidimensional, and they span across time. So yeah, so there's the chokore, which is the power symbol, which is basically about bringing in universal healing energy and giving power to the other symbols. And then the second symbol is the emotional mental symbol, which is Seihiki, which is about healing emotional energy, mental energy, bringing balance to mental emotional energy. And again, multidimensional, can be used in various forms and various ways. And then the third symbol is the longest and the most complicated to put together and to draw, is the distance or time distance, which bridges that gap. Um, and that is Honshaze Shonen. And that's basically about bringing two energies together. That is basically the meaning of it, and creating that union as one. And then obviously when you come to use the distance symbol, it just adds that distance. Sorry, the master symbol. It brings that the master energy into it as well. And again, so like I say, you can use the symbols in multiple ways. Distance symbol you can use for past lives. You can use for future events. You can use it for appointments that you might have coming up. Any issues that might bring forms of anxiety or worry, you can send healing to a future event. You can send it to Akashic, so you can send it to your Akashic records, to any events that you might want to heal from your past. Any events that you might want to heal in your future, you can send it that way as well. But it really is a wonderful, multidimensional, multifaceted form of healing. It really is. And there's only your imagination really that will hold you back. And I think that goes for a lot of healing modalities, is really your imagination is the only thing that will hold you back. And I've found that a lot with hypnosis when I've done hypnosis training and taken people through stages of hypnosis, that there's only your imagination that will stop you from going as far as you want to go with it.
Yeah, that is lovely to hear. You know, these symbols are obviously egregorically charged, because every user that uses it downloads it and uploads it into the universal symbol bank on the astral planes and through the etheric substance. So obviously, when you look at these pictures, you are sort of invoking everybody that's used them's energy in some sense, or you're not. It's sort of like tapping into a shared database of energy that we're able to, utilize, borrow, if we will, until we upload it back to source from when we got it. But here's an interesting question.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what about colors? How do colors relate to Reiki, and how are colors used specifically?
That's really interesting. You should ask that, because a lot of people always ask about colors. Like, what does it mean when I see that color? What does it mean when I see that color? Because people tend to always see colors in a Reiki healing session. The most common colors is usually purple, which is significant of the crown chakra, usually depicted in this purple. People always also talk about Reiki, the color of Reiki being this sort of magenta color, purpley color, which is what a lot of people see. People also see a lot of green, which is connected to the heart chakra. And yellow is quite a prominent color sometimes as well, which is to do with the solar plexus chakra. But that tends to be what I feel a lot of it is. Sometimes people see white or black. White, again, for me, is kind of like even more higher frequency energy. So maybe it could be crown chakra, it could be further afield. But it's very high dimensional energy usually when they see white. If they see black, for me, it's usually a shifting of something possibly negative. It might be something that someone might deem as, say, a block, or something that may be slowing them down in life. That is usually what the black is. Or it could be a level of transformation as well that they're going through internally, that they need to just kind of like get over. And again, Reiki is really good for that. It's really good for bringing that balance of transformation, because people can lose themselves when things change. If someone's reality changes, people can lose because they don't know. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know where they are. They don't know what to do. And again, coming back to the breath, coming back to being present, coming back to the Reiki, coming back to the healing. Um, it really is. It really is a wonderful way to just bring that clarity of self back in, just to slow everything down and just say, hey, what you're getting worked up for? Just let's just tune back into reality a little bit of where you are, and don't get carried away with the mind and the thoughts and the what ifs, all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
And we both know just how the world does that to us. The world programs our minds with worries,
Mm,
concerns, possibilities, work, money, family. There's
yeah.
always 1,000
Yeah.
things that we're supposed to have in our mind. We got, you know, generally work involves being paid by a company to take on their psychosis for whatever reason that is. It's an interesting way of looking at what employment
Yeah.
is, what ploy it is that we're falling for in the act of employment. What stress are we being paid to absorb? Yeah. And so obviously
Mm,
Reiki becomes a wonderful antidote,
yeah.
and possibly more than an antidote, more like a tool of reconstruction, change the fundamental paradigm so that you're able to sort of
Mm,
find a new way of flowing through that
yeah.
energy And it to me,
Yeah.
it's interesting because Reiki has been probably a name on everybody's lips for, I don't know, since 40 years for me, like, but I'm sure it was there long before. you know. But it seems like it's become very
Mm.
popular,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
since the 90s.
yeah.
It
Well,
really
the
became.
definitely. Yeah, definitely, definitely. It was, I mean, it was used by the Egyptians. The Egyptians called their version of Reiki Sekim, which is spelled Seichem, I do believe. So the Egyptians used it. Um, they also went more into the elementals as well, so the earth, fire, water, air elementals within that form of healing as well. But Sekim is the Egyptian form of Reiki. Um, but yeah, a lot of people kind of flower things up and make things sound as though, oh, this is more powerful than that, and that's more powerful than that. But I think whatever level of healing you're going to go to, as we discussed in our chat with Patrick, um, it's all doing the same thing at the end of the day. It's all serving its purpose, and it's recreating something that we discussed. It's recreating people's DNA by releasing some of this stuff that we're holding on to, that we're trapping internally. So yeah, it's, you know, whatever form of healing you go to is fine. You know, that it doesn't matter. Just I think at the minute, the healing and people working on themselves is the most important thing people can do, because we're helping not just ourselves, but we're helping our ancestors. We're helping our whole lineage, um, that we've gone through. Plus, we're helping the collective. We're helping the planet. We're helping raising the collective vibration of the planet. And the more we raise the vibration, the more we heal, to a higher level of awareness.
I, I like that you bring awareness into the conversation, because when I look at the word awareness, it's like, uh, where? Where exactly? Oh, awareness. Where are you? So there's something of that, because we
Yeah.
tend to, like you said in the beginning.
Where did it go?
Yeah, yeah. Positioning. What is our position in life? What is our position emotionally? What is our position in space and time? And what is our position energetically? And obviously, like you mentioned, the heart energy, the heart seems to be the central meridian controller, if I can use that word, or director, probably a better word, the director of the show, and the show of life. And this is like my show and your show, and the director and the actors are all playing their roles, and there's a script that's been written. DNA is unrolling the script, and there's something that puts it all together. That's that fundamental
Mm,
energetic resonant frequency of flow, life force, prana. So
mm.
that's definitely, that awareness is obviously the key of
Yeah.
becoming present. And obviously a present is a lovely thing to get. We all want presents. Like when it's our birthday, we're like, yay, I'm gonna get presents.
Mm.
So we get to give ourselves the most fundamental and basic present that there is, the present of presence. And in order to give ourselves that present, all we need to know is where we are. Really know, like,
Mm.
where are you at? It's a saying that people ask each other, like, where are you at? But do we really know where we are
Yeah.
at? And I suppose that's where the meditation comes into it,
Mm.
because, like, true meditation, I agree, is very much about location, location, location. You know, finding our true
Mm.
location within ourselves and physically as well. And the breath is what sort of fundamentally expresses the body in a sense. So um, which is the
Mm.
fundamentally funny thing about the breath. It once roots you in the body, grounds you, brings you to ground zero, but it also, on the other level, opens you up to a plane outside of the body. I'd like you to talk about that. I mean, that's quite an interesting concept, how the breath is so polarizing and an effect of polarities and brings about this restructuring of consciousness, shall we say.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? How we focus so much on that in breath. That in breath brings us to who we are, brings us to us. That in breath takes us into ourselves, and we could, I've used this form before with people where I've asked them to breathe into a certain part of the body to make us more again aware of what is there, what is going on, and then the out breath is where we move that awareness out. So we've got this in and outflow that is constantly going on. And the more we tune into that in and outflow, it takes us onto this, I suppose, become so connected to that in out breath. And I suppose it's almost like the shaman's drum, with the beating of the drum. You become so aware of not just the beat, but also the space between the beats. And the breath is exactly the same thing. You're aware of the in, there's a pause. You breathe out, there's a pause. You breathe in, and there's a pause. And it's being, again, if you want to take it that little bit deeper into your awareness, are you aware of the pause? And how long is that pause for? Is it a natural pause? Is it a forced pause? Is it something that you're creating through box breathing or holding your breath for so many seconds and then releasing? Or is it just a natural ebb and flow of the breath? It's a bit like when you watch the tide of the ocean. The tide comes in, and just before it goes back out, there's a slight pause and it moves back out again. So everything is circulated around this in and out motion. And this stop in between, this pause, ever so slight pause, and it's just fascinating. It really is fascinating, and it's just so powerful. And you can use it. Just finding that you can take it as deep as you want. You can use it just as a way of relaxing, a way of just sort of just getting yourself together for the day, and for the beginning of your day or the end of your day, or however you want to use it. You might want to use it just to help you to get to sleep on a night, and just find that stillness, just focus on your breath, and eventually you nod off. Another great way of using it. But then you might want to take it that little bit deeper, where you really want to analyze the breath and analyze these spaces within the breath. Analyze the space that you feel within the body and the places within the body that you don't feel space. You feel there's something not quite right there. You feel that there's maybe something that needs to be expressed or a blockage. Um, I mean, a few weeks ago, I was sat and I was meditating, and I could feel in my solar plexus there was something there. So I just listened to my body and I said, "What is this? Why is this here? What are you trying to tell me?" And I kept getting this sort of reflux, this acid reflux sensation. And I was just like, there's some anger here in my body. There's some anger I need to let out. So I just kept talking to it. I'm going to let this anger go. I let this anger go. I give this anger permission to leave. I don't want to hold on to this anger anymore. I tell you, I just gave it permission. I just repeated myself over and over and over again. And then as it started, and then I felt some tears, I felt some emotion, and it went. And I was like, wow, where did that come from? I didn't even know I was holding on to that, but it was there, and I just spoke to it, and it went. And that's what we can do to ourselves when you want to become truly in line with that energy internally. Just speak to it. Speak to your body. It's the same as when you speak to a plant or you go into nature, you speak to nature. It's exactly the same. It's always listening. Nature is always listening. Trees are always listening. Trees are amazingly powerful for cleansing and grounding your energy. So amazing. Just walking among lots and lots of trees. A lot of people talk about walking barefoot, which is great. But if you can't do that, walk among lots of trees, because I know I've felt the difference in my energy field just by walking among trees with shoes on and feeling as though the energy of the trees, it's almost like as I'm moving through them, there's like a gentle energetic cobweb just brushing me. And then when I come out the other side of all these trees, I just think, oh, I feel so much lighter. I feel lifted. Something's been removed that needed to be removed. I just feel so much better for it. And you see that all the time in nature. When people go into nature, even when you go for a walk in the woods or away from towns, away from suburbs and industrial areas and popularized areas, but go into nature and go to the beach or go into forests and mountains. And if you see people, they will actually speak to you because they're just so open, they're just so free, they just feel so good. And yet when you go back to towns, people don't really want to make eye contact or speak to you or do anything, because they're just under all that trench of civilization.
I totally agree. We take trees for granted. And obviously, it's the oldest symbol of spiritual organization of the spiritual system that there is on earth. And some of the oldest diagrams that we have
Mm,
of the heavens and the hell, well, hell's a very modern word, but the underworld and the divine worlds and the in between always relate to a tree. Every spiritual tradition has a tree at the center of it.
mm,
Even the ones that are trying to move away from animism,
mm,
like Buddhism, for example, still sitting under a tree, mate. There's just no escaping the trees. And they are the most powerful. Like, okay, so what I've noticed with trees, and I've got a relationship with trees. I like to hold them, touch them, hug them. This morning after the sunrise, I had my hand on the tree. You know, there's one tree that I like to touch every day, and there's another
mm,
conifer as well, and there's even a palm tree. I find the palm trees are quite interesting
mm,
because as above, so below is a rule for the trees. So when they're like tall and thin and standing up there, that's what the root is doing. It's quite a concept. To stare at a tree, step
mm.
back and imagine it's doing that under the ground. What? It's a real head opener.
Yeah, yeah,
But I find that when I hug a tree
yeah.
or touch a tree and start to feel the resonance with the tree, I automatically want to pee. I want to pee on that tree, like a dog, like an animal. Is that? Have you noticed that too? I mean,
Mm,
that there's some programming that the tree gives
mm.
you.
Yeah.
It's like, listen, mate, you got any like you got any like nutrients you don't need? Maybe a little bit of nitrogen.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. They're just so powerful and so profound. And sometimes I even when I do walk among trees, I just imagine the sound that they actually make, and I'll hum like hum, and I'll just think of, like, if it's a really, really, really big tall tree, it's gonna have this really deep resonance going all the way through it. If it's a smaller tree, it might not be quite as deep, but yeah, I like to just make sounds when I walk among trees, because I just feel that that's what they're doing. They have this frequency that they just emit, and it's just like a low, steady, calming vibration. that's just like, and it's just ever present. Whereas we may be able to hum, but we might not be able to keep one note. Whereas the tree will always keep that woo all the way through. Um, that's just what I feel when I walk among them. I just feel that, and that deep resonant tone is the grounding. That is what's grounding us as well. That is what is rooting our own energy field into the earth to keep us planted, keep us protected, keep us moving through life in the way that we need to move. And the more we connect to nature and trees, and getting away from the mainstream world as possible, is going to have a profound effect on our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, spiritual health. It really helps to bring balance and unity to the being.
It's funny that you mentioned that one note, and I also I've got a very special connection with trees. Always have had, and it's the only thing I ever liked to draw. I don't consider myself a fine artist at all. But if you ask me to draw something, I'll draw a tree.
Mm,
It's fascination with trees. Always have had them. And
mm,
what I noticed when I was in very deep state of consciousness was I connected with the telepathic resonant frequencies of trees. And I really went into that one note, and I noticed it was a syllable. But bloody, that syllable takes a long time to be spoken. And then you gotta wait for the next syllable.
mm,
They're actually having a conversation with these long tones. And our
mm,
minds are like put into very fast
mm.
fragments of time. And so like we literally have to consider this
Yeah.
reality that like a tree can live for 1,000 years, you know, it's something to consider. Or more. There are trees that live for 7 or 8,000 years.
Mm.
It's like that's a lot of experiencing whatever was going on around
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, even in UK, I remember in Wales, I used to love going into Wales because there's some really old trees. There's some oak trees in Wales that you can find that are 700 years old. Beautiful, big ones. Not many anymore, sadly. 500, 600.
Mm.
I think you might find 1,000-year-old tree in even in Wales.
Yeah.
Not many, sadly.
Yeah.
Um, thank people for that. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That
it
there
seems to
was. Did you
me
hear about that one in? I think it was in the Lake District. Did you hear about that one? Sorry. I was going to say, did you hear about the one in the Lake District that got chopped down by somebody? It was in Sycamore Gap, and it had been there for something like 500 years, and someone came along and cut it down, some vandal or whatever, and it was big news in the UK because it's such a prominent area for walkers, and it was this iconic. I think it was in a big film as well. I don't know if it was like Robin Hood or Braveheart or something like that. It was in one of these big blockbuster movies, and someone came along with saw and just chopped it down. It's like, why? Why? Absolute
that
lunatics.
that's interesting. I used to live in the Lake District and in Kendal actually, and close to the water. And I didn't hear about that, but it must have been after I'd obviously left. Um, probably it was in the last 10 years. I'm guessing that you're talking about, yeah, the last 15 years, 10 years. But
Mm.
yeah, no, that's a bit sacrilegious, isn't it? That's an interesting
Yeah.
thing. Like in the USA, there are some pictures of those trees. Oh my gosh, I've never seen trees like this in my life. There are photographs in the old archives. I don't know if you've seen them of trees the likes of which we will never ever see again in our lives. The great trees that used to exist. We're talking about trees that
Mm.
um, you would need 15 people to hold hands to span this tree. And you can see them handling these trees and sawing these trees down and taking blocks of
Yeah.
trees. I mean, you could literally take a block of the tree, hollow it out, and you've got a bedroom in the house. You know, big room, like pretty make a house out of one slab of the tree.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it definitely seems that the trees that we've got now are midgets compared to what they used to be. I think it has a lot to do with the vapor canopy collapsing, and the vapor canopy obviously
Oh yeah.
changed the way in which everything was
Mm.
bigger, right? So these little bugs that are this size, they used to be like
Yeah.
cats,
Yeah.
dogs. So the trees were exponentially bigger. Even we were bigger,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and so
Yeah. They had to
when
be
the
bigger
vapor
to deal
canopy
with it.
collapsed,
Yeah.
big great
Mm.
flood came. Religions wrote about it, and everything got
Yeah.
small, shrank away.
Mm.
And some places, though, and this is quite interesting, seem to preserve that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I was talking to my son about the karoo, the size of ants in the karoo. Get some big ants. That's just down the road from here, like maybe about 4 hour drive from where I
Mm.
am, and you get into like the semi-desert, and you got these huge, huge ants, which is bizarre. You know, you don't get ants that big in many places in the world. But getting back to trees as well, there's something
Mm.
about touch wood, the idea of wood, touching it, and how it can sort of re reorganize the electrical field by absorbing and negating, because wood tends to resist electrical charge, doesn't it? Something quite interesting about it. That's why lightning, when it travels through wood, it
Mm.
wants to break, split, burn. It's resisting the high resistance of that electrical charge. So we've got these old sayings of touch wood, you know, if there's a negative
Mm.
influence psychologically, spiritually, whatever it is, don't want to manifest something we don't want to, accidentally we touch wood because it neutralizes the electrical output of
Mm.
our energetic systems. So, and I noticed when I lived in the jungles as well, you get encapsulated by the spirit of the trees because of the um, dampening effect that it has in the electrical field, so that the electrical field is able to cause the central nervous system to relax more, and so the body relaxes more, because we tend to be overamped electrically in our nervous system, which means that we've got excessive subcutaneous tensions, which obviously focuses in our neck, back, and body. And so Reiki is obviously going to be resolving this issue, you know, doing, I suppose, what trees do. Reiki is sort of
Mm.
bringing that treeness into people. I don't know, that's how I've always thought of, you know, all the healing arts that are relating to prana
Mm.
or life force energy in some way. And it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
It brings me to another point. Crystals. I'd love to you to tell me about crystals and Reiki, and do you use crystals with your Reiki?
Mm.
And
Yeah. 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 I have many many different crystals that I use. Quite a few various forms. Um, I started off with amethyst. I think it was my first ever crystal, because I think it's probably the go-to that most people turn to is amethyst. It tends to be the most popular. Um, and then I got a piece of moldavite, and that kind of really ramped things up for me a little bit. It was very, very powerful crystal. And I still find it amazes me to this day, even though I've had the piece for quite a few years now, quite a number of years. Um, but crystals came into my practice after meditation, but before the Reiki. I started getting into the crystals and felt this sort of connection to crystals where when I was holding them, I could feel and I could see what they would do, and how they would help the the mind or the physical, um, the emotional or the spiritual. And I just got these inklings and downloads and feelings of how they would help. Um, so yeah, crystals are quite a big part of the practice and using them. And I do, even though they're not technically a part of Reiki, I do try to include them in my teachings because I try to include little bits of how I work with them as well and different tools that I use. And crystals, yeah, that they've been a very, very powerful, transformative addition to me and to my energy as well.
Yes, for me, crystals seem to be almost the opposite of wood, which is interesting. You know, you've got the wood, which seems to negate the electrical charge.
Mm,
Crystal seems to excite the electrical charge. So there's this really interesting interplay
mm,
between
yeah.
increasing your auric bubble with crystals or relaxing the auric bubble with wood,
Mm,
which is fascinating. Um, and obviously, you work with a apophyllite.
mm.
Apophyllite's a wonderful physical healing stone, isn't it? Tends to it's a little.
I don't. I haven't got a piece of that, I don't think. Mm,
Have you not? They're beautiful. They're like little trapezium pyramids, natural.
I don't think so.
They look like Mayan pyramids. It's their natural form.
Oh, right. Oh, I don't think I've got one of them. Right. Okay.
They're fairly common.
I'll have
You'll
to
probably
look for
see them
one of
around. They'll
them.
probably
I'll have
now
to
that we've mentioned them, they'll be
have
popping
a
up.
look around.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
apophyllite.
yeah.
Um, they often come in little clusters, beautiful little clusters.
Apophyllite.
I've got some
Mm,
around. I haven't been using them much. I gave a lot of my
mm.
apophyllite away. But yeah, the whole idea of the focus, crystals acting as a focus, you know, um, they do
Yeah,
tend to do
yeah,
that. I suppose they do that with the light, don't they? Yeah, they focus the light. The little,
yeah, yeah. I've had some
so they
very interesting things happen with crystals where I've visualized a lot of things through crystals because they talk about seers and mystics and clairvoyants using crystal balls. And you don't even need a crystal ball. You can just look into a crystal. Normally, quite a smooth crystal or a polished crystal is usually best. But yeah, you can see some really interesting things just in a polished crystal, the shapes and the variations in size of them. Um, I know there was one session that I did a distance session a long time ago, and I was looking into a piece of amethyst, and and I kept seeing these sharks, and it was like, the screen poster for Jaws where you have like the nose of the shark going up over, and you got the diver, the swimmer on the top of and I could just kept seeing the point of the nose of this shark in the crystal. I was like, what the hell's this? Why am I seeing sharks? So I mentioned it to the client, and she said, "Oh, we love Jaws. We've got posters all over the house of of Jaws." I'm just like, "Oh, okay. Well, for some reason, I was seeing it in the crystal. Really, really bizarre. Some really unusual, but quite fascinating circumstances that have happened with crystals. Yeah."
Yeah, I'm here in Cape Town, and we've got Sandstone Mountain here, which has got a lot of quartz in it. Um, so it's basically a lot of natural quartz, or even a lot of the
Mm,
sandstone's just got the quartz in it. It's while you're climbing the mountain, you
yeah.
see it refracting. Beautiful. It's like being on a big chunk of crystal in a sense.
Mm,
Powerful mountain.
mm,
Something about being on mountains where there's crystals. That's what I've always found wherever I've been. Um, but I've always thought of crystals as being little living beings and a different order of life. And they don't have the same freedom of will and thought that we do, but they are supporting. Like, how can I put it? I don't want to downplay crystals, but like extras in a film, right? They don't have lines,
yeah. Yeah.
they don't have a role to play, but they're
Mm,
there to support the ones with lines, just in the background. They've got their role, which isn't a role this role. And I think of
mm,
crystals as the metaphorical extras
yeah.
in the film of life. And
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way of looking at them. Definitely. They're like um, they're
yeah,
like
they
guiders,
tend to
aren't they?
talk. They tend to talk to me, these little guys. So there were a few wonderful things that you mentioned as well earlier when you were talking
Mm,
about, gosh, this light is so bright, it makes my eyes just want to like, it makes me want to sit with my eyes closed the whole time. Been trying to figure out how to put that light. I always have this issue. My eyes can get quite sensitive to bright light, but I don't want the background to be dark. So, um,
mm,
yeah, you were also mentioning that,
yeah.
you know, the way in which your energetic systems with the Reiki are basically um, shifting your internal mechanisms. I thought it'd be nice to talk about the spiritual world, the spiritual reality, the spiritual uh, development of the soul, and then the physical aspects of Reiki. Because there's obviously a spiritual aspect of Reiki, which doesn't involve the physical body so much.
Mm,
In other words, you can do Reiki that touches the body, and you can do Reiki that doesn't really, Reiki that touches the soul. I hope I'm being very articulate enough here, but I think possibly you know what I mean. Well, I'd love to hear about that. Reiki that is
mm.
designed, for example, to bring out past lives or to bring out recognition of the Akashic field, because you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. It's a very interesting thing. I mean, Reiki is classed as like a holistic form of healing, so it's going to everything that you need at that time. Um, when you're in that session, when you're in that healing session. But on a physical aspect of things, obviously it's working through a lot of stuff emotionally and mentally that can be created in the physically anyway. So what I did used to experience quite a lot of lower back pain, and obviously skin issues from the mental health and things like that. Um, Whereas the Reiki helped to work through a lot of that, through the clearing of the emotional, mental, and energetic debris that was residing in the physical body. So it managed to shift a lot of that through. And that's kind of like how it works in a nutshell, really. It really goes deep and it goes to the root cause, because a lot of pain, unless obviously you've tripped over or whatever, but a lot of pain is a manifestation of your energy blockages, or emotional blockages, mental blockages, or spiritual blockages sometimes as well, that can manifest within the physical body, and that's where we get these pains and inflammations and things. So it's going more on the metaphysical side of healing, much like um, the meditation, it really helps to open you up that little bit more to what is kind of around, what is going on, what you can be feeling, what you can be aware of. Um, and for me personally, it really did when I started doing the self healing quite a lot. I used to always feel here this sort of tingling sensation. It was almost like, if you can imagine, like when a flower opens, it was almost like the petals of a flower inside my head were like opening up as the third eye was working and starting to kind of like open up properly. And the same at the top of the head, the crown. I used to always feel like this strange like pressure on the top of the head, and I didn't really know what it was. And then I kind of like felt it must just be the energy working and opening up on the crown chakra as well. And you can feel that throughout the body. And as that healing continues on more of a spiritual setting internally, that also transcends and moves through the mental, the emotional, and the physical as well. It allows you to become more, again, authentically in line with who you are. Um, it allowed me personally as well to become more expressive of who I was, more self accepting of myself, and more authentic of myself, and being aware that I had to look after me first before I could look after other people. So it really does put you in line and in check with yourself on a deep spiritual level, on a deep physical, emotional, and mental level as well. So it brings all of those elements together to create that beautiful union of healing within. So it is for me personally. It's been quite profound. It's been a huge change. I was always kind of very self-aware, very self-conscious. I would never really say much. I was always quite kind of. I suppose I am still quite introverted, but not so much now. Um, but I will, I'll say what I feel now, whereas before I would kind of hold it back. I wouldn't say what I felt, and that again comes from a level of healing that's happened internally.
So what I'm hearing you saying here is self-expression, and the self-expression aspect of your
Mm,
inner paradigm became released, freed up, if we will. I think we're taught in society not
yeah,
to express ourselves. We're basically taught don't express yourself. Emotions are bad. Just be rational all the time. And if we think about what the word rational means, it
yeah,
means
yeah,
to
yeah,
ration. You know, don't let all of yourself out. Keep all of yourself. Just let out a little, little. And self-expression is basically like no, share yourself, all of yourself. It's
yeah,
a
yeah,
total contradiction of terms. And so, yeah, no, totally. I see exactly where you're coming from. And I think as well, that possibly as we're moving through these great powerful gates, there's going to be a lot more people, even than there were and are, becoming interested in these different forms of energetic transference, sharing, and healing. But I like the way you put the pressure in the head. I've always seen that as because you've got much more energy flowing, and the valve is a right balancing valve. So it doesn't want too much to flow through at one point too fast, if that makes sense. So it sort of restricts the flow of energy
mm,
so that it's
mm,
like you say, it's like a car. If you were to just get a car into fourth gear, you're probably going to break your gearbox, you know, the torque. You need to get first gear, second gear, third gear to get it to fourth gear because you're going to stretch things if you've got too much pushing on that, you know, very slow moving wheel. Um, or sorry, yeah, on that very fast moving wheel, but the cogs are small moving, small fast moving cog shape, if I can put it in such terms. There's definitely something to be said about this, and I think that it's fascinating that there hasn't been much more scientific research. I'd love for you to speak on that. What scientific research have you come across, and do you think there's been enough? What are your impressions with regards to the energetic system, the vibratory body, the transference of consciousness, telepathy, and that's another thing I'd like you to also talk about with regards to um, telepathy and Reiki, and how you think these all come together.
Mm. Interesting, because my teacher, he's actually putting together, or has been putting together for some years now, a body of evidence for research, for Reiki research that has taken place. And so he found evidence globally, across the world, about how Reiki has helped people, and how it does help people, and how it continues to help people, and how it's been, because it's classed as a complementary therapy as well. So how it's been beneficial for people that have used Reiki alongside helping to treat cancers and other forms of terminal illnesses as well. And again, this is all to do with the energetic vibration, this love vibration within Reiki. Also, there's another lady who's based in America, but she's originally from the UK, and she's a professor of, I think it's physiology and possibly psychology. But she's also a Reiki master, and she's done a lot of scientific research with regards to Reiki, and she's also done a few papers about Gasho. And Gasho is what we use in Reiki, is this prayer pose position where we put two hands together at the chest, which connects to the heart chakra, and that is basically bringing, what we always talk about is just bringing two energies together, so bringing the masculine and feminine energies together, into balance. And the evidence that she put out there about this was the fact that it it actually helps to regulate the heart. It regulates the rhythm of the body. It brings calmness to the body. And so she's brought forth a lot of evidence with regards to that. Plus, she's also done some research with regards to using Reiki on animals, and how animals responded to Reiki as well as humans. Plus, she's also done Reiki research with regards to using someone that's just pretending to do Reiki, someone that is doing Reiki, and someone that's doing another form of healing, and look for the benefits between the three. And the person that was actually practicing the Reiki felt the most benefit, and had the best balancing effect on the body, on the mind, on the emotions. So it had a great overall benefit, to that person and to those people that were receiving that energy. So there has been quite a lot of research done, but you do need to do a little bit of digging to find it. And you do also, on the UK Reiki Federation as well. They actually have sections within their website about Reiki research, and they have links to various sites and various places you can go to for research about Reiki, and about the benefits of Reiki, of how it can help people physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the whole nine yards, basically. So there is quite a bit out there. It's just knowing, and I think when you're in the realms of Reiki, you do find out about this stuff. But when you're not in the realms of Reiki, it's just like, well, where do I look? Where do I go? How do I find out about this stuff? What research is there? But yeah, so there is there is stuff out there, but it's kind of finding it really. But Dr. Anne Baldwin is the lady that I was talking about, and like I say, she's a professor of, I'm sure it's physiology, something like that, in Arizona. But she's originally from the UK, and she's a Reiki master, and she's done a lot of research with regards to Reiki. A couple of other people as well, which are great names in Reiki circles, is there's a lady's book that I use for my courses, called Penelope Quest, and she's been a Reiki master for over 30 years now, but she tends to just write more about Reiki now. She's written books such as Reiki for Life and the Reiki Manual, which are both books that I've got, and they're both great and give a lot of concise information with regards to Reiki. But there's another guy that I follow on social media and I'm aware of, and I'd love to chat to him at some point as well. And his name's Franz Steiner, and he's based in, I think he's in the Netherlands. And I've got one of his books, and he goes very deep into the philosophy and the mysticism behind Reiki, and kind of like the Zen Shinto practices within Buddhism that a lot of Reiki comes from as well. But he also explains in his last book that I've just bought about how a lot of the Reiki philosophy also goes back to ancient China as well. So there's a lot of stuff coming from ancient China that is also in Japanese Reiki, because it's all intertwined in so many different ways, as we know a lot of these practices are.
Yeah, I'm guessing we'll discover in time that all of these ancient practices are really universal and they've been sort of put down and picked up again and put down and picked up again throughout history, called different things, yeah, taught in slightly different ways. But at the end of the day, they probably come
Yeah,
back to
yeah,
very similar things.
absolutely.
Reiki might just be a
Yeah.
more specifically refined technique by a specific person that picked up something and sort of, well, this is a really refined way of doing it. We'll do it like this kind of thing. I think it's the same for most occult, spiritual science traditions that relate to
Yeah.
energy work of any sorts. And I do think that it is fascinating that there are all these people out there now that are starting to want to test for effects of Reiki, because I think it's going to change the medical association's perspective on this. And maybe one day
Yeah.
you'll be able to actually call it medical science, medicine, without being afraid of being arrested.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
no, that's
But it seems to be that's the
that
way the direction of the world is going, doesn't it?
definitely. And here's another point: Reiki and plants. I wouldn't call it Reiki specifically, but it's the same thing. Open yourself and allow your energy to flow. I noticed there was a sick tree by the park I used to go with my ex-girlfriend, and I spent time working with this tree every day. And it took a few months, and then the tree was vibrant. It was dying, it was old, it was sick, whatever, it was sick, poisoned. And feeling into the tree, feeling its energy field, feeling that it doesn't want to engage with its roots, and stimulating its roots to engage with the tree, to detoxify the tissue, and it did. So, like, there's an interesting concept. You mentioned Reiki with dogs. Well, Reiki with plants. Like Findhorn had something to say about similar kind of, working with plants and using these kinds of forms of medicine, if I can use that word, in a loose metaphorical sense, so that we don't get arrested. Before the thought police come and kick our door down and say, "What are you doing?"
But what are you talking about?
Yeah, we're living in a strange world. The world's getting stranger by the day, by the year. But at the same
Mm,
time, it's also becoming strangely
yeah.
beautiful. Well, it's always been strangely beautiful. I think probably a more fair way of putting it.
Mm,
We don't want to let the world down. She didn't just suddenly become beautiful. But yeah, I think you've brought up a lot of really interesting um, things to
yeah.
look at
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
think about. So where do you see? Here's we're getting towards sort of probably going to wrap it up in
Good.
the next, I'd say, 10 minutes. I'd like to ask you, where do you see yourself taking Reiki? What are your plans for the future? How do you see the evolutional process moving through you? And I'd love for you to share your thoughts. Anything along these lines of consideration.
The video broke up a little bit there. So, the future of Reiki, perhaps.
I will try again. We have had
Um,
internet issues
and the future,
today.
I think that's right. What you're at. Yeah,
So
it's been
yeah,
rather glitchy. This last sort of half hour, especially.
I will say less and ask a question more specifically. Where do you see Reiki in the future going? And how do you see yourself evolving with your Reiki in the future?
Right. Okay. So I see Reiki um, always being around, becoming more prominent, becoming more used, becoming more known about, because there's still a lot of people that don't really know what it is. When I tell people about Reiki, they haven't got a clue what it is. And I think having more people like myself being able to talk about it, being able to understand it a little bit more, understand it a little bit deeper, to be able to express it further, be able to demonstrate it further, we'll put it further out there. Um, so I see it always being around. I see it always being a pillar, really, for many other healing modalities to be a part of, because there is a lot of people that use other healing practices with Reiki, such as massage and giving Reiki as well, um, and incorporating that in their practices. So it's just, I think at the minute it is just building momentum. I mean, let's face it, in 1980 there was only 22 Reiki masters in the world. So it's still a relatively new art. It's still got a long way to go. And along that process myself, I'm relatively new to it as well. I was first attuned in 2019 to Reiki 1. So I'm still relatively new with it, and I'm still developing each and every day with it, finding more about it, learning more about it, and learning more about myself along the way as well. Um, and just me alone, the stuff that I can do can open people's eyes to it and be more aware of it. And I just want to incorporate it with as much as I can within the healing modalities that I use. So whether it's with hypnosis or meditation or Reiki or massage, I just want to include it as much as I can, because that for me was okay. I got to the meditation first, but combining Reiki and meditation together, that was the clincher for me. That was a turning point. So yeah, for me, it's just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep evolving and going with it, and just following my journey, my spiritual path, what I feel, the directions I feel called to. So that's it in a nutshell.
One other thing I'd like to ask you before we are signing off, and I'd like to thank you for sharing your time and your insight and your experience with us. Give people a bit more of a background into Reiki and a taste of yourself.
You're welcome.
Um, is Where can people? Do you have a website? Where can people find you specifically? Obviously, I'm going to link your YouTube channel in, and your YouTube channel is also one of the suggested channels in this channel as well. So it's quite easy
Hmm.
to find. But do you have a website as well? Do you have other blogs?
Yeah, yeah. So I use my website where you can get in touch to book any of my practices, and that is reikizen.co.uk. And then I also use Instagram for some of my socials, and I use Facebook. And my Instagram is Reiki Zen underscore Ian, and my Facebook is just Reiki Zen. So yeah, and then obviously you've got my YouTube, and I can give you the links for all of them, so you can put them below, so people can find them.
Is that correct? Whoops. Sorry. I will put it up on.
Oh,
I'll put it up on the other thing.
wrong
I
one.
thought I had, but it was reikizen.co.uk. Yes, .co.uk. Just because I didn't
Yeah,
hear your voice so clearly, but in
yeah,
the recording it will come out because we've done local recording, so the internet issues will be scrubbed. They'll be fixed
yeah,
magically backstage.
yeah,
But thank you
yeah.
very much, and
Fingers crossed.
yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. Like I pay these guys a fair bundle to make this work, so they better make it work. But otherwise, they're gonna have like moaning and complaining from me via email. But yeah, so it's definitely been a beautiful discussion. Thank you so much. For those of you that don't know, go and check out his channel. He's got some really lovely sound-based meditations, relaxation meditations, energetic meditations, and um, readings, energy readings, and healing sessions that are remote that he does, as well as various different interviews, various different. Some of your older stuff's also quite lovely, actually. Got some really fascinating people
Mm,
that he's been with and collabs, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more stuff popping up as well. And of course, we're looking forward to having him back on the round table at some point soon. Um, oh, before we go,
absolutely, absolutely.
before we go, you're a musician. Tell us about that. Where do you play? Where do we find you?
I am. um, uh, Nowhere. I haven't really got much anywhere. Um, I used to be in a band called Two Blue, so there's some videos on YouTube, um, and the channel is called Two Blue Band, TWO Blue Band. So I'm on there. But yeah, so I've been playing guitar since I was about 11. I started learning. I'm now 43, so I've been playing for quite a while. Still got a long way to go, but I enjoy it. It brings me a lot of relaxation. It's again quite mindful activity. Um, but yeah, and I've always just been. Just love music, but I especially love blues music. Something so healing and deep within the mystical realms of blues music.
Soulful. I find it soulful, full of soul, blues,
Mm,
touches
definitely.
deep notes, chords, brings out the sorrow. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Like them trees.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been absolutely great. And
You're welcome. You're welcome, brother.
I hope you have an absolutely great
Absolutely.
continuation of 2024. How's 2024 started for you, by the way? I hope it's had a good kicker.
Yeah, it's been okay so far. It's been all right. It's been okay. Yeah. It's been a good start.
Well, I hope to be seeing more of your videos popping up. So much love to you, brother. And so much love to all of you. Thank you for joining us. And sending love, peace, blessings, Om Shanti, Bam Shiva to everybody out there. Start working with your meditation, your energy work, work with your Reiki, work with your chakras, work with whatever makes you feel like you got the flow. Flow is really what it's about. Energy is like water, it wants to flow. Let it flow. Don't stop it. We
Yeah.
tend to stop the flow of energy. Reiki is just how to prevent yourself from
Yes.
stopping the
Let it
flow
go.
of energy. So much
Yeah.
love to all of you. And to you, brother. God bless you. Thank you for
Thank
honoring
you.
me by giving me your time. Big bless. Shanti, Shanti.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Bye bye.